Hello people and welcome back. With this video I want to give the interested listener some insight into Debussy's famous piano piece Rêverie. He wrote the original in 1890 and this is what he commented in a letter to an acquaintance. De choses sans importance, fait très vite pour rendre service à Hartmann. En deux mots, c'est mauvais. In other words, he wrote it very quickly and thought it was bad. Nevertheless, today it remains a very known piece and a good subject for analysis. I can relate to Debussy's opinion if compared to the rest of his repertoire, although I think he might have exaggerated a little bit. The opening, with its vague character, is typically striking in my opinion. If we look at the big picture, the piece structure is ternary form, or ABA form if you like. This will be indicated on top of the video in the grey bar. As usual, I will give, or at least try to give, the harmonic functions below the score. As most of you know, Debussy is what we like to call an impressionist, but this piece is written in late romantic style. At some instances, the harmony becomes quite vague and hard to analyze, or should I say, should be analyzed in different ways depending on what you are trying to show. At such moments, it's always useful to try and figure out what the composer was thinking or doing by intuition. Remember that analysis is just a tool, it's not rigorous or absolute. Certainly not in late romantic impressionistic works. First we will listen to the piece. I include the analysis in the second part of the video. You can skip ahead to the analysis if you already know the piece by heart. So, as indicated on the key signature, we might be in F major or D minor. The accompaniment that Debussy gives in the first two bars is quite vague. I might opt for B flat or perhaps G minor chord in first inversion. It doesn't really matter that much. The intention of Debussy is to recreate a vague dream or a vague start to a dream. In the third bar, he writes the first theme. The interval indicated here, a descending fourth, will be the main building block for the rest of the composition. Also notice that the gap in the rhythm is filled in with this half note. If we really want to name this chord, I will put my money on G minor in first inversion. Thus the second scale degree in F major. The interval returns here in the skies. Also notice the introduction of this cell, which Debussy will use extensively, as well as the introduction of this triplet rhythmic cell. In the last bar here, Debussy uses the interval of a descending fourth again, but delayed by a quarter note on E. This is just the leading tone moving to F, the tonic. I think we can now safely say we are moving to F major, although in first inversion. Debussy now moves to the dominant 7th chord in second inversion to make a cadence in F major. The bass line that started in measure 1 is as follows: B flat, A, G, and F. I would analyze the next chord as the 6th scale degree with addition of the 9th and the 7th. The main interval is used again, and the accompaniment is now fully continuous. The next chord is the 2nd scale degree. From the 6th scale degree to the 2nd scale degree is just a circle 5th movement, from D to G. Debussy cuts the original phrase and repeats the main interval with the same harmony as before. In the last bar, he continues the circle of 5th movement from G to C. We now have a dominant 9 chord, which moves to the tonic briefly. The cell that I spoke of before is now used extensively in another cycle of fifths. We have the 3rd scale degree, the 6th scale degree, the 2nd scale degree with a 7th, and the dominant 7th chord. Now, in every classical composition we should now resolve to the tonic, but Debussy evokes the unexpected nature of the dream by giving another 7th chord. Although he gives F the root, in the bass this actually becomes a dominant 9th chord in B flat major. This chord now also differs in color because of the use of octaves. The melody continues in octaves and B flat major becomes more and more established. He then proceeds using the melody in a sequential fashion with another new high point element of surprise on this chord. Notice the increase in volume as well. The main interval is used again. Now, what is this chord? An augmented chord on F? We have F, A, and C sharp, but a G in the bass. That's very unusual, right? The next measure will perhaps give some clarity. We now see that G stays in the bass and C sharp moves to D. F and A stay as they are. We now have a dominant 9th chord, but without the leading tone B natural. We move away from the key of B flat major. G as a dominant works in the key of C, but Debussy switches again to the strange chord to deprive our certainty. Well, he's just playing here because he now gives the dominant 9th chord on G again, still without the B natural. Finally, the leading tone B is given and the cadence is established in C major. In the last measure, Debussy modulates directly from C major to C minor. The melody is then transferred to the lower register. Another remote chord, but this time it's a more common one. This is a double dominant. How to recognize it? Well, we are in the key of C minor. What is the dominant in C minor? It is G major. Then apply the same reasoning again. What is the dominant of G major? That is D major. So Debussy uses this chord without resolving to G. He returns to C minor and the melody stays in the bass. Another surprisingly odd chord, C, E, G sharp in first inversion. G sharp moves to A, and the new chord is F major with A as a bass note, thus a first inversion again. The melody indicated here will be used in a sequential fashion in the next measures. G sharp is introduced again and we seem to be moving into a C7th chord, but with a bass note G, thus more specifically a second inversion of the dominant 7th chord. Not quite a resolution yet, because it's not F major, but another 7th chord on F. Then Debussy starts the cadence with the 2nd scale degree, followed by the dominant to come back to our home key of F major. The first part of the composition has now ended. In the middle section, Debussy starts with the alternation of 2 chords, D minor and E major. The scale E, F, G sharp, A, B, C, and D is known as the Phrygian dominant scale. It resembles the Phrygian scale, but G is raised instead of natural. This scale is common in Middle Eastern music. Notice the very clear question and answer structure here. Also notice how Debussy uses the triplet rhythmic cell from before to link the first section with the middle section. Debussy ends the answer with another cadence in F major and then restates the question in E Phrygian dominant. The answer modulates directly to E major on a dominant pedal of B. You can also predict this by looking at the key change in the last measure here. We now stay on the B dominant pedal for a while. Then he introduces elements of E minor by flattening G sharp to G natural. C sharp and D sharp are elements in E melodic minor. I would argue that the pedal point on B remains to the last measure here. We have B, D sharp, and F sharp. Debussy modulates directly to a dominant 7th chord pedal point on G, hinting back to C. The triplets are now used continuously as the pedal tones. Notice how he then switches the registers. The pedal point notes G and F are transferred to the bass and the melody from the bass to the alto. The G dominant 7th moves to a C dominant 7th chord, which is of course the dominant in the home key of F major. With a wide arpeggio on C, Debussy links the middle section back to the original first theme. I will call this the A prime section. The melody is identical to the A section, but the accompaniment is divided in a low and high register, creating a beautiful dreamy atmosphere. Later, Debussy returns to the original accompaniment. This harmony differs from the original A section. We have an E flat major 7th chord followed by a F dominant chord with E flat in the bass. Eventually, this E flat will move to D. Debussy uses a dominant chord on D to move into the coda. In this coda, the 2nd theme from the middle section is used on a G pedal point. This G then becomes a subdominant in D minor, with a clear cadence in the last measure here. The 2nd theme is then repeated. Here is a new way of analyzing it in D minor. I would say this is rather useless. The main takeaway is that we have the contours of D, G, C, and F, a cycle of fifths. The dream is apparently not a nightmare, because Debussy ends it with a clear cadence concluding in an F major arpeggio. I want to conclude the analysis with outlining how I think Debussy recreated the atmosphere of a dream, intentionally or not. He used vague harmony. At some points we have no grip of clear harmony, certainly in the beginning. In a dream you can feel the same way. Sometimes you are just a bit lost and not in control. He uses remove chords that act as elements of surprise in a dream, together with the contrast in volume. Moreover, the accompaniment is moving in slow waves or arpeggios. These are perhaps imitations of the harp, an instrument very much associated with a dreamy sound. And last is the slow tempo, the relaxed and sleepy vibe. Okay, so that's it for this video. I hope you could learn something from it and hopefully see you on the next one. I've recently also released some new electronic music, so you can find the link in the description below. Also, I'm working on new piano music, so stay tuned for that as well. Okay, bye bye.